Hello, and welcome to the ProjectWise Administrator Advanced Accreditation course on the iModel Composition Server for PDF. In this lesson, you will create an output destination folder component for a relative folder from source file for the use of an iModel Composition Server. When creating an output destination folder component for a relative folder from source file, this will allow users to apply their plotting standards to selected files at plot time when using iModel Composition Server and provide convenience to administrators when creating plotting standards. During this lesson, you will learn how to create an output destination rendition for a relative folder from source file. An output destination folder component for a relative folder from source file defines where ProjectWise will generate the newly created rendition and also decide potentially where distributed source files will be stored. For each output destination rendition component you create, you will define where the output of a job will be stored, whether or not to create a new version if the file name is not unique in the destination folder, whether or not to map attribution from the source documents in the input set to the new rendition documents or the copies of the source files that get stored in the destination folder, and whether or not to distribute the source documents in the input set. In this exercise, you will define an output destination folder component for a relative folder from source file. Once you've logged into the ProjectWise admin tool, let's select the renditions object. Use the greater than symbol next to renditions, and we'll drill down into the rendition profiles components. We'll keep expanding until we reach the output destination folders. Select the output destination folders and right-click and choose New Destination. Change the pull-down for Place in Rendition to Relative Folder from Source File. This field lets you enter a string that defines a folder relative to the source file folder. By entering the relative path, we can physically type a string such as PDF, which would generate a subfolder relative to the existing source file's folder location. If you like, you could also append or amend additional folders and build the path dynamically by clicking the Add Symbol button. We're able to use any of our particular attribution, whether it be document environment properties, folder environment properties, work area project properties, environment attribute properties, or some sort of general attribute. Most likely you'll use an environment attribute by selecting the particular environment in question and deciding on the attribution to help you build the dynamic path. For example, using, say, the design status. But for our particular exercise, we will just use the PDF folder itself. We also have the ability to create this folder if it does not exist. So if that subfolder is not already a part of your template, it can be generated at plot time. Once again, you can choose the environment and to make a decision on what environment attributes will be available for the PDFs as they are generated. You can decide on the storage location where those files will be stored in your data source. You can also decide what workflow states will be available for the PDFs as they arrive. For this particular exercise, let's go ahead and leave this set to inherit from the parent folder for the time being for all three of the settings. The destination component gives you the opportunity to override existing PDFs based on their file name. So we could choose to use the overwrite feature, or we could choose to create a new version of a file based off of that file's name or document name in ProjectWise. In this particular situation, we will choose the overwrite file name. We want to make certain that we do not include the delete existing duplicate files from versions when appropriate. That setting is only to be used in a specific scenario when plotting simultaneous versions at the same time. In this particular exercise, we will not mirror the source data source folder structure for these rendition files, so let's make sure to leave this off. We will copy version names from source documents, and we will not copy workflow states from the source document. Let's give our component a name, relative folder from source file. Let's take this opportunity to look at attribute mapping as well. This will allow us to map any attribution that is found in the environments on the source documents. That information will be added to the newly generated PDFs found in ProjectWise. So to choose your attribute mapping, you can start with the radio buttons on the source attributes and click Document, and click the destination attributes and click the Document radio button as well, and choose Auto Map or Add, and that will give you the description for the original file that is being printed as a PDF. Next, you can select the environment radio button for the source attributes and the environment radio button for the destination attributes, and then choose the appropriate environment for your attribute mapping. In this case, we will use the My Company rendition attributes for both the source and destination environments. Hit Auto Map, and this will automatically map each attribute between the source and destination files. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to environments is to keep in mind that when you're using a document code, they can cause issues when mapping attribution for the ICS for PDF product because of update triggers. So it is not uncommon for people to have to use a cloned environment of the source environment. And that cloned environment would remove the document code as an example. It looks just like the original, however, it does not have the document code involved, and thus it's free to receive information since the ICS product is sort of feeding that environment constantly, the new PDFs and the source file attribution information. With that, you can click OK to finish with the attribute mapping. And next, we'll click OK on the Output Component Destination dialog. This concludes the lesson on creating an Output Destination folder component for a relative folder from source file. Let's review what you've learned. During this lesson, you've learned how to create an Output Destination folder component for a relative folder from source file. The next video will provide techniques on how to create an Output Destination folder component for a relative folder from parent work area when printing with the iModel composition server. Thank you.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.